Bring into the conversation now to discuss this even further, our friend there at the Heritage Foundation, Senior Legal Fellow, Zach Smith. He joins us. And Zach, thanks for being with us. This is getting a lot of attention here. And I wanted to ask, is this a far-fetched idea, or will it pass muster in the courts now that that's where it inevitably will go here? Do you agree with some of these attorneys general? Is Trump here trying to rewrite the Constitution, or are there legal pathways to see this through? Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on the show, Andrew. And no, I don't agree with those attorneys general. Look, we heard a lot of references to the Constitution, but that's obviously where we have to start, with the text of the Constitution itself. And if you look at the 14th Amendment, what it actually says is that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof shall be citizens of the United States and the state where they're born. And it's that second clause, that subject to the jurisdiction thereof clause, that is so important, that is so often ignored. Because essentially, if you go back and read the debates around the time the 14th Amendment was ratified, what is clear, it was designed to fix a very specific problem, to rightfully make sure that recently freed slaves and their children would become citizens and full members of our political community. What it was not intended to do is create citizens out of individuals or the children of those individuals who owed their allegiance to another sovereign or owed very little to no allegiance to the United States itself. And that's the way the amendment was understood by essentially everyone in the United States for the first 70 years after its passage. And it was really only toward the middle of the 20th century, with certain executive actions, that this new, broader conception of universal birthright citizenship really took hold. So yes, Donald Trump does have very good legal arguments on his side that, in fact, his interpretation of the 14th Amendment is, in fact, the better one.
But this, to your point, this clause, I'm going to read it here, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's legalese there, but it has been adjudicated in the courts. We know there's a conservative majority at the Supreme Court. I would imagine and venture to say that this would probably get up to the highest court in the land. How will they interpret that clause? Will they use precedent of past interpretations, do you think?
Well, let's pause there and let's understand exactly what that prior Supreme Court precedent says. It was an 1898 case decided over 125 years ago. And what the Supreme Court said in that 1898 case is essentially what Donald Trump said in his executive order. The Supreme Court said that a child born to a U.S. citizen or to lawful permanent residents in the United States is a United States citizen automatically. That is all that precedent said. And if you read Donald Trump's executive order, what he says is that if that neither parent is either a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, then the child of those individuals will also not be considered a U.S. citizen. And so this is an issue that hasn't been litigated in the courts for many, many years. Yes, I think it is likely to go all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. But look, if you look at the jurisdictions where these 22 states filed suit, one is in the First Circuit Court of Appeals jurisdiction in Massachusetts. The other is in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in the state of Washington. They're obviously trying to file suit in what they hope will be very favorable courts. But we'll have to wait and see how all of this ultimately shakes out when it does get to the U.S. Supreme Court.
So we have in front of us a statement from the White House press shop on and in response to some of the lawsuits filed today to fight this. Harrison Fields, he's a deputy press secretary there for the Trump White House. He says this: radical leftists can either choose to swim against the tide and reject the overwhelming will of the people, or they can get on board and work with President Trump to advance his wildly popular agenda. He says these lawsuits are nothing more than an extension of the left's resistance, and the Trump administration is ready to face them in court. Are there practical hurdles here? This is taking effect in 30 days. If you're a young couple and you're expecting your first child and your due date is February the 25th, will your newborn child be a citizen?
Well, look, I think we have to understand if either parent is himself or herself a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, like a green card holder, then yes, of course, your child too will be a U.S. citizen. What this this executive order is designed to combat is to make sure that people are not benefiting from their own illegal actions, that those who are born to illegal aliens, who either the father or the mother are not U.S. citizens, that they themselves will not become U.S. citizens, and also to combat a problem that many people don't even realize exists, such as birth tourism, where people come to the United States for a very short period of time, give birth to a child, and then return to their home country. That certainly was not the intent of the framers of the 14th Amendment. And if you look at the text and history and debates surrounding it, I think that view is well confirmed.
All right, Zach, we're going to have to leave it at that. We do appreciate your time, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, in the meantime here, we really wanted to hit this hard today and explain it in full. It's somewhat complicated here. The actual name of the executive order is this: Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship, and it would end birthright citizenship for illegal immigrants. You heard there some of the legal scholars we've had on today arguing for and or against it, and we're going to continue with that story.